Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. We've got a wonderful guest presenter for you all. Hallie Crawford is with us today. So happy to have her. I just wanted to go ahead and before we get started, do a little housekeeping as we always do here on these webinars. First things first, I really need to make sure that you all can hear me. So if you could please find the little hand and raise your hand, just click on that and let me know that you can hear me. That would be great. Thank you, folks. Awesome. Okay, people can hear us. That is a good thing. So just so you all know, again, my name is Callie DeWald, and I work here in the Career Center, specifically in UGA's part of Alumni Career Services. So I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Services. If you didn't know, yes, UGA has services just specifically for alum. We provide free career coaching services to you all. If this is one of your first times attending, just know that we typically do these webinars once a month, sometimes 3 times a month. We actually have 3 webinars this May. So please take a look at the list of programming that we do on our website and go ahead and register for some of our events this May. Additionally, I want everyone to know that this webinar is going to be recorded. So if you miss something that Hallie says, or you want to go back and take a look at the slides or any of the tools that are shared, you can go ahead and do that. So this is going to be recorded and sent to you by the end of today. So you'll have that you can go back to. If you have any questions during today's webinar, remember this webinar is for you, so please get the most use out of it that you can. Feel free to ask questions you can just type them into the questions box, and I'll be receiving those throughout the presentation and making sure that Hallie is able to answer those for all of us. So without further ado, thanks for all joining us again for today's presentation on creating your personal brand. It's going to be presented by Hallie. Hallie Crawford, our presenter, is a certified career coach, and she's a national career expert based in Atlanta, Georgia. Her company, you can Google it, at HallieCrawford.com. She has a team of coaches that help thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream careers. Hallie is also a regular featured career expert in the media, so she has articles in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, the AJC, and Fox Business News. So if you're interested in reading more, she's got her blog on her website, lots of really great tools and resources. Be sure to visit HallieCrawford.com. And with all of that information, I'm going to hand it over to Hallie.
Thanks, Callie. That was perfect. Really appreciate it. And really appreciate all of you being here today, especially on your lunch hour, if that's the case for the majority of you. We appreciate your time and attendance. I'm struggling a little bit with allergies in Atlanta, as I'm sure most of you can relate and understand how that was or is for you all, but it's actually getting better this week. So thrilled to be here with you today. As Callie said, we're going to be talking about creating your personal brand. I am a certified career coach and the founder of my own company and organization, HallieCrawford.com. And just as a quick intro, we have been coaching and training for over 18 years. I know I might sound like I'm 12. I'm actually 46 and have an 11-year-old son. Live here in Atlanta, grew up in Florida originally. And I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a graduate degree from the University of Illinois, a master's degree, both in communications and psychology and education. And here is what we are going to be talking about today. So let's take a look at the next slide. And here's our agenda to be talking about creating your personal brand. And obviously, everyone, when we're talking about your personal brand, what we mean is, why having a brand is essential to your professional success. And what you'll find is, as you start to think about and define and identify what your brand is, it's going to kind of bleed over, go into both your personal and professional lives. Because obviously, ideally, professionally, we want to show up as ourselves to a certain extent, the professional version of ourselves, in terms of branding and how we approach and work with people in our professional lives. So our agenda will be these 3 things. On the slide here, why having a brand is essential to professional success, the three main components to help you build and understand what your personal brand is. We're going to talk about who you are, what you do, and what you're known for, and how to identify those things and communicate them. And then finally, we're also going to be talking about managing your brand and how to manage that over time, because it's not just one and done, okay, this is what it is, la, 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 and I'm done, I don't have to do anything else. We need to actively be managing our brand for professional success over time. And obviously, as you can imagine, there's lots of different ways to do that these days with LinkedIn and with the internet, everything else. So it's even more critical to be mindful of what your brand is. Just so you all know, as Hallie referenced, you will be receiving a recording of the webinar today. If any of you would like a copy of the presentation slides, please feel free to just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. I will show you a slide with that email on there, but I wanted to mention this up front so that you don't feel like you have to be frantically writing everything down. You can receive a copy of the slides. Just feel free to reach out for those. And then finally, also, just one other quick admin item. There is a handout for you all. It's in the handout section of the GoToWebinar box there on the right-hand side for you. All right, so here's our agenda. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So first of all, we need to talk about, obviously, why branding is important. And most of you probably know, like, have an inherent sense, which is why you're here today, about why professional branding is so important. So take a look at this slide here first. Personal branding, which is basically, it's the art, so to speak, of, you know, building and maintaining a brand around yourself as an individual, as a professional, is just as important as an organization building their brand. It goes both ways. So, you know, as we know, having an organization, like especially large organizations, they have a very solid brand. Home Depot, Best Buy, all of those things. And just as important as an organization having a brand, it's critical for the employees and the professionals within that organization to have and build their own brand as well. And here's the deal. I really thought and liked this quote from Inc. magazine from 2014, is that personal branding is becoming increasingly important, and I totally agree with this, because modern audiences these days tend to trust people more than corporations. Now, obviously, this is a generalization, so it's not always this way across the board. But because, you know, with so much social media and everything else, we still want to have that personal connection with someone within an organization. That helps enormously for sales of your service or your product, and even just client relationships. Whatever it is that you do as a professional, this is really, really important to still maintain those connections, not just with your coworkers, your employees, but also with your clients and those that your organization is interacting with, whether it's clients, sponsors, vendors, everything else. That's part of branding as well. So as we know, if you take a look at this next slide here, clients, coworkers, and employees are going to work more effectively with us if they trust us, respect us, and like us to a certain extent, right? So this isn't about, you don't have to be their best friend, but they like us as a person, and they understand what our values are and respect what our values are, and they trust us to follow through on what we say we're going to follow through on. So this is part of why a personal brand is so important, because when you have that, and when you have a solid brand that reflects this trust, you know, has people respect you and like you, then that's going to help you have much more effective work relationships as a result. A personal brand represents the value, and this is an important definition, everyone. A personal brand represents the value that you're able to consistently deliver to those people that you are serving. Whoever your constituents are for your organization, that's the value that you're able to consistently deliver, and you need to be able to articulate that to others. All professionals should have a personal brand, but unfortunately, a lot of statistics show that most do not. And if you take a look at this next slide, and Hallie, if you want to start to pull up this first poll here, we're going to get it going right out of the box here, that less than 50% of business leaders have a solid and defined or clearly defined personal brand. That's a very low number. And less than 5% are consistently living by their brand, okay? So first of all, we want to ask you all that are on the call today, how many people struggle with identifying your personal brand? And if you can go ahead and just respond to that. And we completely understand if the majority of you are struggling with that, because obviously that's probably why you're here. But part of why we ask this question is we want you to understand you're not alone, that a lot of people still have a hard time with this, me included. I work with my coach on a regular basis, my business coach, to make sure that my personal brand is being reflected through our organization and that we're constantly communicating in a way that reflects and supports that brand all the time, okay? So Callie, if you could share the poll results, just read them out to me, that'd be great, because I can never see them. I don't know where they are.
You're fine. We've got you. So with this question, how many struggle with identifying their personal brand? 81% of folks said that they do, and 19% said that they don't. So
okay,
kind of like what we were expecting.
Yep. Good. Thank you for sharing that, Callie, and everyone for participating. We really appreciate it. So again, you're not alone. We're all in the same boat. And for those people that do feel like they don't struggle with this quite as much, that is fantastic. Think about and consider, anything new here for you that we've presented today, but also we want to focus for you all on making sure that you're managing your brand effectively. I have, by the way, and here is the email if you would like a copy of the presentation, like we mentioned before. I'll just leave that up for just a second. So I have a branding statement that I check in with, just by the way, for myself and for my organization at least once a quarter. So when I'm doing my quarterly planning, that branding statement is right there, and I'm making sure that my goals, my quarterly goals, which then trickle down, as you can imagine, to my monthly and weekly goals on a regular basis, they're all attached to and reflect that branding statement. And also, by the way, and I'll just share this with you while it's on my mind too, is you want to make sure that the people who work for you, so I have independent contractors that work for me as well as kind of vendors as well, that they understand what our branding, what our values are as an organization and what our brand is. And this is something that I communicate with my employees about on a regular basis, to not just make sure that they're on board with it and it makes sense, but that they are behaving in ways and that I'm asking them about how does this look when you are interacting with one of our clients or customers, and have them answer that for me so that I can hear directly from them that it not just makes sense to them kind of mentally, logically, but also that they're behaving in a way that reflects our personal brand and that their actions are, supporting that brand. So one of the things that I want you all to think about, and we'll go to the next slide here, number 2 is building your brand, and these 3 components that you need to be thinking about is you want to have a branding statement document that's readily accessible that you attach to your planning process on a regular basis, okay? And especially if you have your own business or just have, employees or a team that you work with, that you all are clear on, okay, what is our brand kind of as a group and as an organization, and how do our actions reflect that? So you also want, to a certain extent, ideally, if you're in the right career fit, okay, you want your personal brand to be reflective in some way, or I don't know if I want to say similar, but aligned with, I think would be the better word, your organization's brand, at least to a certain extent. Otherwise, if it's not, there's going to be dissonance and you're going to get unhappy and kind of feel unsettled over time. And there's a chance that your organization where you're working or your role, the job may not be the exact right fit for you. So just kind of as an aside, everyone, thinking about what your brand is, you should also think about the organization that you work for and if your brand is aligned with it, at least to a certain extent. So let's take a look at this next slide here. And step number 2 is the 3 components to building your brand. So we talked about why this is important. Now, how do you get started with this? So 3 components you need to consider is who you are as a professional, what you do as a professional, and this is not just, about the tasks that you perform, but these are the results that you achieve for your coworkers, for your employees, for your clients, for the people that you serve, okay, and what you're known for. So I love this quote from Jeff Bezos, from the founder of Amazon. Personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room, and that is exactly accurate. So one of the first steps that you can take out your pen and paper for me, and I want you all to think about, this is one of your homework assignments, is when we're done, you want to think about, okay, what do I think people say about me when I leave the room? Not when they're mad at me and frustrated, but the positive things, ideally, okay? So you want to think about the who you serve, And so who you are, who do you serve? Think about your boss. And you can think about your constituents, obviously, too. Those are the people you serve as well as, who you are as a person. What you do is the benefit that you provide to others, okay? And what you're known for can also include, like, how you deliver those results as well. And we'll get a little bit more into this as we go, but just to kind of give you an overview here. First homework assignment is going to be to think about, like, what are the 3 adjectives that you think people use when they talk about you when you leave the room in a positive way, okay? So let's talk about who you are, okay, the first step here. And the first thing that you want to do is a self-assessment. We started to talk about this already a little bit, in the previous slide. So you want to think about, okay, who am I as a person, but also more specifically as a professional? So what are my values? What are my career values? What do I stand behind or stand for as a professional? Is it trust? Is it, strong or hard work ethic? Is it about being detail-oriented or process-oriented? What are the things for you that are your career values that mean the most to you in terms of what you do for a living, okay? The second thing you want to think about, too, in terms of who you are as a professional is what are your long-term career goals? Because this is part of it as well. If one of your career goals is to be a leader within your organization and even a manager, that can be included or should be included in your brand, that I exhibit a strong leadership style, and it's clearly defined in leadership strengths and skills. You can also include, as part of this first piece of your self-assessment, you can also include your passion and why you're enthusiastic about your work in your industry, why you enjoy what you do. And hopefully you still have a sense of whether it's passion or enjoyment, whatever word works best for you is fine. But we want you, if you're in the right career fit, you need to have some sense of true enjoyment or passion and engagement in your work. And you want to include that in your branding statement as well, okay? Because people want to know, yeah, why do you enjoy what you do? What is it that keeps you engaged in it? The second piece to defining who you are in terms of a self-assessment is to understand and identify what your strengths are. And you can also, as part of this piece, your education and experience. So why are you qualified to do what you do, and how do you achieve these results? Based on these are my strengths, and this is why I'm so good at what I do, and my educational background and my experience and expertise as well. So that is another component to your branding statement as well. And then finally, your personality type. This is one that I always like to bring up because this is one that a lot of people will forget about and kind of leave by the wayside or discount, so to speak. You also want to think about, in terms of your brand, what's your personality type? These intangible things that you bring to the table, those soft skills, whether it's, again, like I have a very strong work ethic, or it's you're more extroverted, let's say, than introverted, and as a result, perhaps you do a great job of connecting with people very quickly and a lot of people quickly. That's just an example, not an overgeneralization, but an example, okay? So what are the soft skills that you have? Who are you as a person in terms of your personality type? Are you more detail-oriented, or are you more strategic and big picture? Are you great with, numbers and financial analysis, because that just works well with your personality type? So think about those different elements of your personality type as well, and how that is combined with your values, goals, and your passion, and your strengths, education, and experience to complete that big picture. Let's take a look at all of these in a little bit greater depth here for just a second. So when we have our clients think about their brand and, what their values are, we have them go back to what is most rewarding for you in terms of enjoyment. What are the most rewarding tasks that you perform? What's the best project you've ever worked on? Why do you enjoy what you do, based on not just what your values are, but what your goals and aspirations are, like we said earlier. So one of the ways, okay, to think about and identify, what your values are and your goals and aspirations is to think about, okay, what is like a peak experience that you've had in your professional life? When do you normally feel like you're just rocking and rolling and things are all, working on all cylinders, and you've enjoyed, like, what's the project you've enjoyed the most? And pull out of that what the values are that demonstrate or that come out of that experience that are so important to you. And also think about what are your most enjoyable times of the day when you're working on a specific task, when you're working with a specific person. Take kind of stock in the next few days here of what's most enjoyable to you in your job and the times of day that, you know, is kind of the highlights, if you will, and what are the things you're working on at that time. That will give you clues to things that are the most enjoyable for you. And then second, the experience, education, and strengths, why you're qualified, and this is part of your branding as well, how these things relate to the value you provide to your customers, your clients, and your organization. So how do these things, these three things here, tie to, this is why I'm able to achieve these results, because I have these strengths, because I have this background, this education, and this past experience, okay? We want you to take a look at, as part of this, and this is where I've pulled some of these clues here, is from our ideal career model. So if you take a look at this next slide here, everyone, this is what we call our ideal career model. This is something that I developed early on in starting my business and developing our coaching practice. And these are the 8 things that we assert are essential to being in the right career fit and also being successful in your chosen profession, okay? So you can take a look at all of these. If any of you are feeling like, gosh, I'm not sure if I'm in the right career fit, we would recommend you take a look at all of the pieces and consider, is it fulfilling for me? Am I working on tasks that are enjoyable? Am I leveraging my strengths in my job enough and in the right way? Am I leveraging my past education and experience as well? Does my job play to or fit with my personality type, or is there a rub there? And also, am I in the right work environment, and am I being compensated in the way that I want to be, okay? So this is how we use the model for the career satisfaction and the right fit. For branding purposes, which obviously is what we're talking about today, to help you define and identify who you are for your branding statement, these are the pieces that we talked about already. These are the pieces that we want you to think about in terms of identifying what's fulfilling and rewarding, my most enjoyable tasks, what are my strengths, education, experience, and we touched on personality type as well. I just wanted to show you all this model because for some of you that are more visual learners, you can kind of see how these pieces then as well fit together to not just make sure or help you ensure that you're in the right career fit, but they can also help you identify your long-term professional goals for your branding statement, as well as what you bring to the table like we discussed before. So these pieces are the self-assessment where you're doing your own self-reflection. The next slide is where we're going to have you take a look at interviewing other people, okay? So one of the other things we actually have our clients do, every single client on a regular basis, is check in and get feedback from other people. So one of the ways that you can start to identify not just what your brand is and how you're coming across in general, but also to identify and understand what your top strengths are is to interview 3 people in your lives right now. And we recommend a mix of male, female, and interview more than 3 people if you can. That'd be fantastic. But do a mix of male, female, and people, you know, that are in different roles in your lives professionally. So a coworker would be a great one, a supervisor or even a former supervisor would be another good one, a mentor or an employee, whatever makes sense for you, but have a mix of people because they'll see you showing up in different ways based on the role that they've played in your lives, okay? And ask them these questions. What are your top 3 strengths? What do they see that you do better than anyone else they know? And when they think of you, and this kind of goes back to what the quote from Jeff Bezos a little bit earlier, when they think of you, what adjectives come to mind first? And have them that just blurt this out. And Callie, if we could do this second poll, that would be great. Have you ever interviewed others regarding your strengths? So we just wanted to check in on that and see if anyone has done that before. The self-assessment is fantastic, everyone, but I want to push you to interview other people as well, because our clients tell us hands down that this is one of the most effective exercises we have them do, because it not just validates some of the things that they already knew about themselves, but every single person always gets some new nuggets of information that they either had not thought of or about information about things that they may have discounted and just assumed, oh, well, everyone's good at that. So I don't really count that as a strength, okay? So Callie, if you could share the results, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So folks, it looks like the majority of folks have not thought to do so in terms of interviewing others regarding their strengths, but 24% have and 76% have not.
Okay, well, I like that answer because this is something that you all need to do. So let's add this to your list of homework assignments. So this will be number 2. So in addition to the self-assessment, and I would suggest using the ideal career model, like we referenced in the previous slide, to do that self-assessment as a start. The second thing after you've done that, always do these in this order, by the way, because it will help you to do it that way, is interview 3 people at least. And by the way, we recommend everyone that you do this either over the phone or in person, not via email, ideally, because it would be nice for you to be able to ask them additional questions. Just for some clarification. And tell them that you were assigned this from a webinar that you attended if you have to. I know in some cases people feel kind of weird about this, but tell them you got to do it for homework. It's part of the deal, okay? So that would be homework assignment number 2. The third thing that we want to take a look at in terms of understanding who you are as a professional is very specifically looking at who you are as a leader, okay? I'm making the assumption today that most of us, or all of us, in some way, shape, or form, we want to be able to say that we are a leader in our lives and in our workplace. And even if this does not mean you want to be a manager, everyone, you still probably would like to be able to say, yeah, I want to be a strong leader within my organization and, you know, with my coworkers, for example, if that's the case for you. So this is a leadership wheel that shows you the top 10 leadership strengths that, according to Development Dimensions International, this is a very large business consulting firm, very highly regarded. They've been around forever. But from their surveying managers and leaders at organizations all over the world, these are the top 10 leadership strengths that they assert are the most important in today's workplace, okay? Some of them may not be relevant for you. And if 1 or 2 of them is not, that's okay. You don't have to rank yourself on this. But I would suggest that you all print this out and rate yourself on where you are with each of these leadership strengths. Again, keeping in mind which ones are going to be the most important to you for your role and for your organization. And figure out where you are and where you need to develop these leadership strengths in order to increase or enhance your brand. I would also push you to ask other people to rate you on this wheel as well, okay? Because that will give you not just the self-reflective, the self-awareness, like we said, self-assessment, but also getting other people's feedback can be incredibly helpful for this too. So when you're thinking about developing and enhancing your brand, everyone, this will help you not just identify where you are very strong and what you can point to or speak to, I should say, in terms of your brand. Like, are you really good, for example, at leading across generations? Are you really good at change management, or not so hot at those? I would say I'm great more at coaching and developing others and, you know, communicating and interacting with them. That's fine. Then that would be part of what your brand is. Okay. All right. So let's go to the second piece here. So we talked a lot about who you are and how to define who you are as a professional and what your branding strengths are. Okay. Now let's talk about what you do and what you're known for, kind of the second 2 pieces here. Okay. So the 3 components that you want to also ensure that you have in your branding statement when you are actually writing it out, everyone, to be able to articulate it to someone else, okay? So by the way, just to clarify, I recommend that you have a longer branding statement for yourselves that maybe is like a half a page, give or take, and then you have something that's shorter that you could almost consider like your elevator pitch, okay? And that would be your shorter kind of branding statement that you use to articulate to other people. So you want to think about and have included in your branding statement, who do you serve, what makes you unique as a professional, and finally, why should they believe you? And this is basically the results that you've achieved, why they should believe you. Here are the results I've achieved. Here's how long I've been in business. That's why I say to people, we've been in business for 18 years. I say that for several reasons, because that's part of our brand. We are experienced, we're experts, and we have materials and we have a process. And not a lot of coaches can say that, okay? So that's part of our branding statement. So let's take a look at this next slide here and talk about, okay, how do we think about, you know, who do you serve and how do we incorporate that into our branding statement, okay? So you need to think about who is your target market, so to speak, and who do you serve? You serve your clients and your customers, obviously, yes. But as part of this, who do you serve in terms of your teammates as well? Include them as part of your branding statement. on the slide here, the bullet points are examples of people that you serve. So I work with people, for example, and this isn't me as an example, but a business consultant might say people who want to grow their business. One of our clients was an environmental engineer, and when he came up with his branding statement and his elevator pitch, part of it was environmental organizations who want to improve their operational processes, because he had that unique combination of being an environmental engineer and extensive experience there, but also was very good with operations and procedures in creating those. So first, you want to identify who do you serve. The second piece is, on the next slide here, what makes you unique? How do you stand out from the crowd? I explained to you just a moment ago, for us as career coaches, how we stand out. It's our years of experience. It's also our very holistic, comprehensive process, looking at who a person is in order to define their career path and be successful in it. That is part of our branding statement as well. Authenticity is another one that piggybacks with that comprehensive process. And then finally, that we have a methodology and tried and proven procedures that help people figure out their direction and be successful in that and enhancing their brand as well. So think about these questions, okay, the top two here, to help understand what you provide and what makes you unique. So what services do you provide, but not just what services do you provide, but how do you provide them that makes you different from other people in the marketplace? And what unique value do you provide that no one else does, or at least few people do? For example, custom programs and treatments, assistance managing inventory, co-hosted workshops. So this would be an example for a salesperson. So we had a client that was a salesperson for Marielle, which is based here in Atlanta. And actually they were bought out and they're now Boehringer Ingelheim. But this was part of what they would tell to or articulate to the vets that they worked with. And when they would go in to sell their veterinary medication, you know, to each of their veterinary practices locally, they would talk about, I'm just not giving you this medication. Here's the deal. I also give you a treatment plan and really explain to you how to leverage and use this with, you know, your patients, the dogs and cats, et cetera. I help you manage your inventory as well, and I will co-host workshops with you. So this is what made them different from other people in the marketplace, okay? And you want to make sure at the very bottom here, if you take a look at the slide, you also want to make sure when you're talking with people about what makes you unique, that you are results oriented. These are the results that I get for you. So because I help you manage your inventory, I am going to help reduce your costs, your purchasing costs by 20% or whatever it is. And because I help you co-host workshops for your patients, I'm going to help you bring in 3 new leads for patients every single month. Whatever it is, you need to think about what your results are, not just, oh, these are the tasks I perform and what I do all day, every day. So you can't stop at just saying, okay, I'm an accountant, for example. You need to say, I'm an accountant, and these are the results that I provide, and here's why, okay? So finally, we need to think about and articulate, why should they believe you? So what are the results that you provide, offer, or create? So this is where numbers come in. And we use, for example, with my business, we have a 98% satisfaction rating with our clients, and we do track that with people through surveys and talking with them. So we tell them that that's the percent of satisfied customers that they have. They give us the highest rating on that scale. We also have percentages for the people that land new jobs, as well as find their career direction and enhance their performance. So here's an example on this slide. If you are a marketing consultant, for example, marketing plans that increase sales by X%, my elevator speech is I help people find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning. That's what our company or organization does. And so that is the very distilled version of what our branding statement is in terms of my elevator speech. So when I attend a networking event or am talking with someone over the phone, that's my short and quick kind of elevator speech that tells people what we do in a nutshell, okay? So I'm going to give you 2, on the next couple of slides here, I'm going to give you 2 branding statement examples, everyone, okay? So this is an example, and as you see, this is very similar to an elevator speech, so these can be very intertwined, okay? But one example from one of our clients is rescuing troubled companies that are in financial, crisis in some way, shape, or form, and they're not doing well with their operations. I have a documented track record of business development, operational planning, and leadership, enabling small businesses to get back on track to success out of the red and into the black within 1 year. So this has all of the components of what the brand is, okay, that we talked about before, the who you are, the results you provide, and to whom. Now, I want you all to notice, okay, that this doesn't have this person's values in here. It has a little bit of what their strengths are, yes, and it has a little bit of what their experience and expertise is. Your elevator speech or your short branding statement that you share with people kind of right out of the box, it doesn't have to have all of those things in it right away, okay? The way that you dress shows what your values are. The way that you communicate with the person afterwards and what you say to them afterwards, that's where your values and other things can come into play if it's not present in this first piece. So keep them in mind. It doesn't mean that they're not important. These two examples would be the introduction for your longer branding statement for yourselves, okay? So this one, just quickly, web developer with extensive experience in wireframing and coding interactive websites and mobile apps for startups, okay, with lots of different remote teams. I thrive in and contribute to fast-paced environments and pioneering teams because of my ability to innovate and develop creative solutions for clients on the spot. This paints a really good picture of who this person is, okay? But like we said, it's the tip of the iceberg. The rest of your branding statement can come out in the rest of your conversation with them. Really quickly, before we start to get to the Q&A portion, because we covered all three of our bullet points here. If any of you all, if we don't get to everyone's questions during the course of our time today, just wanted you to know, please feel free to email me at admin@halliecrawford.com. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, even that you think of, in the next few days. Happy to do that. And if any of you feel like you have a very unique situation with your branding statement and require some additional assistance with this, I'm happy to do a free career strategy session to give you advice on this or any other career goal that you have. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'd be happy to chat with you for a few minutes. Just email admin@halliecrawford.com to be able to do that, okay? And I will show this slide in just a little bit when we're doing the Q&A about coaching. Okay, so our third step here is managing your brand. So let's go ahead and talk about this one, because this is critically important too. So once you've started to establish what your brand is, think of it as something that's going to morph and change at least a little bit over time. Like, don't think of your brand as it's this and that's it. Like, it can kind of adjust and change over time, and you do need to be active about managing it, as we said at the beginning. So managing your brand, it's as much as what you do as what you say. So you can't be the person who says one thing and does another. That's not going to work. So the different ways that you need to consider and be mindful of managing your brand is through effective communication, the action steps that you take and the results that you achieve for people on a regular basis. Be mindful of social media and start to work on establishing a greater presence and the presence that you want to establish within your industry, okay? One thing I did want to mention on the next slide here, in terms of managing your brand, one of the places that is important, obviously especially more so if you're in a job search mode or in the job search mode, your resume is your personal marketing document and your name is your brand. And this goes with LinkedIn too. We'll talk about LinkedIn in just a moment here. But this is something that we have our clients do. If you take a look at this slide here, and it doesn't have to be, with these different colors and everything else. If you're more of a, in a more traditional industry that needs to be more kind of traditional and conservative, that's totally fine. But take a look at here. She has these different things, who she is as a person and the results that she achieves for the people she works with. Your resume is your personal marketing document, and your name, and the reason why we say this, is your brand to a certain extent. You want to have these things attached to your name at the top of your resume. And by the way, you want to do the same thing with your cover letter. When you're in job search mode, or even if you're just networking with people, you also want to do this and put the same kind of thing on your LinkedIn profile, okay? So one of the places that you want to include your branding statement is on LinkedIn. We would recommend in your summary, but also in your job title there at the top. So let me read these, Callie, and then we'll do the poll. So I'll prompt you in just a second so we don't get people too confused and throwing too much at you. So at the very top of your LinkedIn profile, everyone, underneath your, your headshot and your name, you have a space to put, obviously, what your job title is. We recommend having your job title, but also some other words, whether you're a mentor or you're a coach or you're a facilitator as well, like the examples that we just gave you. Add something like that as well, because that can help you establish your brand a little bit more than just, okay, this is what I do. I'm a financial advisor or whatever it is, okay? These two paragraphs go together on the slide here. And this is kind of a summary. I'm not going to read it to you, but this is an example of what you can put in your summary statement or as part of it to help brand you on LinkedIn, okay? So you want to talk about your experience and expertise. It'd be great to have some numbers in there, quantifiable results if possible, how many years of experience that you've had for what purpose, and what are the results that you have achieved. So we are curious with this next poll, and this will be our last poll here, Kelly, if you want to go ahead and launch that for me. How many people have what they would consider, based on what we've talked about today, especially, a solid branding statement on LinkedIn? And again, like we said, we suggest it's at the top in your job title, but also have something more extensive in your summary. So curious to see this one. It is getting better. People are leveraging LinkedIn more and being more effective with it. But please, don't be frustrated or bummed if you feel like yours isn't as good, because LinkedIn is still something that a lot of people are getting up to speed on, okay? And Callie, when we're ready here, we can, if you'll share the results, that'd be good.
4%, so I'll just wait about 10 more seconds, and we'll just see anybody else out there that wants to participate.
Yeah, no problem. I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys. You're doing great.
Everyone's thinking about their brand so much now. Okay, so I'm going to share these results with you all. So we have asked you how many of you have a branding statement on LinkedIn. And the options were I do and I like it, I do but I don't like it, and I don't. So 19% of folks said that they do have one and they like it. 25% said they do but they don't like it. And 56% said that they don't currently.
Okay, so there's enough of us on the call today that need to beef it up. Totally get, in some ways it could be like, is it better that I have one but I don't like it, or not one at all? It doesn't matter. We don't need to split hairs. What you need to do, and one of the things I wanted to share with you, and then let's take a look at the next slide here, just so we keep going, because I want to be mindful of your time, is the branding statement. You're going to have several iterations of it. Like, it's okay to draft something, and then I would recommend look at it in a couple days. Have a friend or family member take a look at it and help you create it and review it. A coach, like this is what we do with our clients all the time. Whatever works best for you, just know that it is something that's critically important that you need to feel really good about. And it's also something not to put the pressure on yourselves of like, oh, I have to get it fixed in a week. It's something that can take time, and that's okay. So work on it over time, get feedback from people, sit with it a little bit, and it's okay to kind of massage it and wordsmith it over time. I just wanted to share that with you. So going back to, for a second here, managing your brand off of LinkedIn as well, there's other places to promote and consider your brand, Twitter, Facebook, and other places. You can add your elevator speech to your signature line in your email. We do that. I also have my photo in the signature line of my email, and I do that because our business, what we do is it's a very kind of personal service that we provide to people. So it's critically important, especially for us as coaches, to connect with the people that we're working with so that they feel comfortable with us. So that's another thing that we do as part of our brand. And also, another way to manage your brand is to establish the presence in your industry, like we talked about. Write articles on LinkedIn for industry publications, give presentations at conferences. There's lots of things that you can do to get more involved in your industry association that can help you establish this presence. You don't have to do this tomorrow, everyone. This can be part of your 6-month plan or the last quarter of this year. For most of you, it may be, let me just get my branding statement kind of in a better spot, and that's fine. But put these on your list, because once you're more solid about it, you want to start putting it out there a little bit more, okay? And number 3, in terms of, or the third thing in terms of managing your brand, is you do want to make sure that you're mitigating any possible bad things, obviously, online. 70% of employers surveyed have said they've turned down candidates because of something they found online that was negative or they did not like. So you absolutely, as part of your branding and, kind of planning for the year, Every quarter, make sure that you Google yourself, that you review your Facebook page, and make sure there's nothing on there that would be inappropriate or could be misconstrued. Pinterest, etc. Review LinkedIn. We already talked about that one. There was, and I've just heard about this actually recently, there is a company here in Atlanta, and their organization uses like artificial intelligence for employers to search on people's Facebook and LinkedIn profiles, but also look at who they're connected to and what does that mean about the person. It's a little bit scary, I agree, but it's getting, kind of worse, the things that employers can find. So I want you to be really mindful of this because it's a big deal, because employers may be making judgments about you just based on the people that you're friends with on Facebook. So you really need to be careful and be mindful of this. Does this mean you need to go unfriend everyone? Absolutely not. But just pay attention to what especially people are posting about you on their pages, as well as what is on your page as well. Okay, so let's talk about action steps, and then we are moving to the Q&A portion right now, everyone. So if you want to go ahead and start to enter in the chat box the questions that you have, we'd be happy to answer as many as we can before I've got to run here. I want you all to come up with one action step that you will take in the next week and write this down for us, please. It could be interviewing others. Even for those of you that feel like you need to kind of fix up your branding statement, ask other people how you come across. Refine your branding statement based on those results. Update your resume if that's the case for you. Take advantage of the free strategy session. Again, like I said, feel free to email me if you'd like to talk about any specific needs that you have related to branding or anything else career-wise. Happy to do that for any of you all. And finally, before we get to the Q&A, I wanted to leave you all with this quote. This is my favorite quote. I use it all the time. When I feel like I have to push myself to do something I really don't feel like doing, or that is outside of my comfort zone, this quote is the thing that keeps me going. The greatest risk in life is not taking one. Take the step to work on your personal brand, everybody. It will make an enormous difference, not just in your satisfaction in what you do, but your effectiveness as a leader and as a professional. Okay, Kelly, let's go to Q&A here. If we can go ahead and get started with that. And I can stay on till about 5 till the hour, give or take, so we'll see how it goes. But please, everyone, feel free to email me if you have additional questions. Oh, and I wanted to say this too, and I'll leave this up here for a moment. Connect with me on LinkedIn as well for some examples about, how your LinkedIn profile can look, and also additional advice because we post lots of articles on LinkedIn. Okay, Callie, I'll be quiet. I'm ready for questions.
Yeah, sure. I think you clarified this, but when interviewing people, you said that the best way to do this is person to person and by phone, right? To kind of avoid email. Yep. Correct. Okay, yeah. That was one of our questions there.
Yeah, because it might get misinterpreted, and then you can't answer quite. You know what I mean? You don't get the tone. So.
Right. And also, just a question here from someone. Do you think it's worthwhile asking colleagues that you currently work with what their perceptions of you to understand your brand better in your office?
Absolutely, yes. If they are people that you're comfortable with and that you trust their opinion and you're going to get good feedback, absolutely. And I don't mean by good feedback meaning it has to be all positive. I would ask them about some of the negative stuff too, if there's anything they think you can improve. But absolutely, current colleagues are a great way to get some information.
Okay, we have another one here. I'm a new professional with educational background for managerial work. However, I don't have any experience or number to back up my intentions and brand. How does one navigate that as a new professional?
Yeah, great question. I love that one. So what you would do is, and I'll kind of use me as a little bit of an example, but you may need to lean on your education. And so for me, when I started out as a coach, I leaned on, so to speak, my coach certification and the hours I spent, working towards that and everything else more so than the years of experience. So what I would do is lean on things that you already do have, whether it's education, and pick out specific projects and results that you've already achieved. Even if it's just a few because you're brand new, I would still pick those out and say, these are the things that, I've achieved so far. And then obviously as well, pick out what your strengths are, because those you've had for a long time, and I would reference those too. And then over time, you'll be able to build it up more, but start with those 3 areas first. That will help. Great question.
And then another question here, for someone who has had multiple experiences in an industry and gathered lots of skills, worn a lot of different hats, what's the best way to brand yourself? Should you go more broad and kind of say, I've worn all these hats, or is it better to just concentrate on top skills?
Concentrate on top skills that are relevant for where you are now and want to be going. So it's okay to say to a certain extent that you're a Jack or Jill of all trades. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. But if your brand is way too vague, it's not going to have enough of an impact. So you want to focus on, in some ways, you can focus on who you're speaking with at the moment. If you're conducting a job search, you want to focus on the top skills that are relevant, obviously, to that job or for the purposes that you're networking for. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah. And here's another question, and I think this is our last one so far, unless anybody else has questions out there. But, when writing the summaries on LinkedIn, what is an appropriate amount of personal information to relate versus professional information to relate? Because a lot of people are putting their interests and outside kind of interests and values and things. What's an appropriate balance of that?
Sure. I would just have that be 1 or 2 sentences versus 10 sentences is the rest that's professional. And I would have it at the end. And it would be it doesn't have to be this way, but in some cases, it would be even cooler if some of the professional interests would relate to the personal interests would relate to the professional, but it doesn't have to be. I still like the personal to be in there because it rounds you out as a person and it says something about who you are as a person and what your values are. But I would keep it at, like I said, 1 to 2 sentences, and that's it.
Okay, truly last question here for you. I know you gotta go.
That's fine.
For folks that are looking to move their brand in a different direction, so obviously career transition and go from one field to another, it's better. How does one handle that? Should they be putting top skills, like you said earlier, that are related to that new brand, correct, or that new field that they're looking to go into?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I would do. I want to say start to shift it in that direction, just because you need to understand that it will take a little bit of time. It's like turning kind of a large boat, so to speak. But at the same time, I don't mean that take your time with it and change your branding statement slowly but surely. I would put the new brand out there, add it to your LinkedIn profile, add it to your resume, start to communicate it, and just know that over time, it might take a little bit of time to take hold, but just go ahead and live it right now. Move in that direction immediately.
Yeah, I've heard from coaches in the past that the best way to achieve your goals is to just act like they've already happened. So you're living it in the moment versus living it for the moment. So interesting.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of like my mom always says, I have to give her credit, dress for the job you want, not the job you have, because you're living it and being that person right now. So it's the same exact idea. Very good advice.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Hallie. This has been a really great webinar. I think everybody out there can attest to that. And like we said, you'll be getting a recording. I'll give the floor to you if there's any last thoughts you want to share, Hallie.
No, that's it. Except what I would say is please just take one, even if it's small, everyone, just one action step. Interview one person in the next week, whatever it is. I know we've given you a lot of information, but this is achieved in baby steps. It can be a 3 to 6 month goal for you to have it perfected, and that's okay. It's better to just do something than nothing.
All right. Well, everybody, hope you have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the day. And Hallie, hope your allergies clear up a little bit. I don't know if that's possible, but we hope so.
Yes, they're on the way. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Don't hesitate to reach out with additional questions. We'd be happy to help you. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.